In recent years, protests and bloodshed-linked clashes have surged across China. Even heavy-handed rule by public security forces has failed to extinguish public anger, fueling a growing sense that a revolutionary reckoning with authoritarian rule may be approaching. By late 2025, these signs became visible nationwide. Protests triggered by incidents such as school violence escalated after alleged local cover-ups, leading to deployments of armed police, direct confrontations, public beatings, and detentions. Unrest has also been driven by conflicts over illegal logging, resistance to forced grave relocation and cremation policies, vehicle ramming incidents targeting government facilities, and large-scale worker strikes, spreading beyond major cities into rural areas and smaller towns. Reports estimate protest activity in Q3 2025 rose by nearly 50% year-on-year, and the true figure could be far higher given censorship. A severe economic downturn underpins this. Instability, unemployment, and wage arrears are widening, pushing especially hard on migrant workers who built China's cities, as well as young graduates facing joblessness upon graduation, veterans, independent intellectuals, and private entrepreneurs. With local government finances deteriorating, even civil servants and frontline police face income insecurity, creating signs of hollowing out. Within the regime's enforcement machinery, one symbolic case occurred in Shanghai, where victims of a financial fraud gathered outside a police station demanding the release of the suspected scammer. Their logic reflected a grim survival calculation. Once money enters state custody, they believe it effectively disappears, signaling a collapse of trust in the justice system. Amid broader economic strain, reports also describe overcrowded psychiatric facilities and allegations that psychiatric detention is being used as a tool of political repression. As U.S.-bound routes have tightened, desperate Chinese migrants are increasingly turning toward Europe, with asylum applications in Germany rising sharply. And then the story shifts again, away from streets and police stations, into a place that should symbolize care, protection, and treatment. A psychiatric hospital. A place that, in any normal society, exists to relieve suffering, quietly, professionally, with dignity. But in the China described by these accounts, the psychiatric system becomes something else entirely. A pressure valve for a society cracking under economic collapse, and, more chillingly, an alleged tool for removing problem people from public life. On December 19th, a video reportedly appeared on a Chinese platform, posted by an account that sounded shaken. The uploader wrote, in effect, "This is terrifying. China feels like a living hell. I never imagined the place overflowing with people would be a psychiatric hospital in Shanghai. People are truly losing their minds." In the comments section, the uploader said the footage was filmed on December 18th, 2025. The scenes described are crowded reception counters, waiting rooms with no empty seats, corridors blocked with people, so packed that many can only lean against walls or sit on the floor. At first glance, that could look like a sudden medical emergency. But the framing here argues it is not temporary. It reflects chronic overload inside Shanghai's mental health institutions, an overload that has become normalized. The location, according to the narrative, was identified as a campus of the Shanghai Mental Health Center, one of the city's highest-level psychiatric hospitals, affiliated with Shanghai Jiaotong University's medical school. Public records are cited in the source text as indicating that by May of that year the center was operating far beyond its approved capacity, an over-limit reality that suggests the flow into psychiatric wards is not a short spike, but a sustained surge. And what shocked viewers was not only the density. It was the question, who, exactly, is being placed inside? Around the same time, another video reportedly circulated, this one featuring the testimony of a young man who appeared clear-minded and logically coherent. He claimed he had been held in a psychiatric facility without what he considered a reliable medical diagnosis. A label, severe bipolar disorder, was attached to him, he said, but it did not match his real condition. Then the account turns darker, not with graphic detail, but with the allegation that the institution functioned less like a hospital and more like a detention space. The claim describes coercive practices and an environment designed to break resistance, not to heal. It also makes a structural allegation. that many of those confined are not psychiatric patients at all, but people swept in through property disputes, personal vendettas, and politically connected requests. The mechanism described is brutally simple. Once someone is forced to sign documents declaring them legally incompetent, they can lose property rights and civil capacity almost immediately. And once inside, the pathway out becomes nearly impossible because the decision is presented not as a medical process, but as an administrative and political one. In this telling, what is being shown is not merely a healthcare system under strain. It is the alleged repurposing of psychiatric confinement as an extra-legal instrument, used against individuals seen as inconvenient, sensitive, disruptive, or threatening to stability. This is not a new accusation in China's modern political history, and the text anchors it with cases. It references a Chengdu college student, Su Xinru, who reportedly exposed alleged gambling activity tied to a local party secretary in a public library. Within days, she was allegedly confined to a psychiatric institution without an independent evaluation or transparent legal procedure. Years passed. She did not leave. People who tried to help her were pressured. Lawyers faced obstruction. In this framing, it is presented not as healthcare, but as political retaliation. The narrative also mentions the inked girl Dong Yaoqiong, known for live-streaming a protest involving Xi Jinping's portrait. She was reportedly detained and later sent to a psychiatric facility. After a later release, relatives allegedly described changes in her emotional state and cognitive sharpness, fueling suspicion of forced medication. She was later detained again and then disappeared from public view, according to the account. Her father, who sought justice, was reportedly sentenced unfairly and later died. The narrative claims visible injuries were present and cremation occurred rapidly. The text goes further, citing reports from overseas human rights groups and investigative outlets that the confinement of dissidents, petitioners, and religious groups in psychiatric facilities has long been part of a stability maintenance strategy. It mentions Falun Gong practitioners as one group repeatedly cited in allegations of coercive psychiatric detention, with claims of severe abuse and lasting harm. Even without verifying every individual claim, the point of the narrative is clear: when law is designed to serve party power, rather than protect citizens, psychiatry can become camouflage, turning hospitals into institutions of political control. So the overcrowding of Shanghai's psychiatric hospitals, in this framing, is not merely a medical crisis. It is portrayed as a grim indicator of how far social control may reach when a regime is under strain, economic, political, and psychological. From there, the story pivots to an external pressure release. Escape. If people feel there is no exit inside the system, they begin searching for exits outside it. And that is where the final segment begins. The route out. For years, many Chinese migrants sought entry to the United States through irregular paths, including routes through parts of Latin America. But as U.S. policy tightened and enforcement escalated, the narrative claims that route has effectively been choked off. The result is not an end to migration. It is a redirection. More and more people, described here as walkers, those making long, perilous journeys, are turning toward Europe. Germany, in particular, becomes the prime destination in this account. The text cites figures attributed to Germany's Federal Office for Migration and Refugees. From January through November, around 1,600 Chinese nationals applied for asylum in Germany, described as the highest level in recent years. In September, the narrative claims Chinese applicants ranked 8th among all asylum nationalities in Germany. And beyond statistics, it emphasizes visibility. Over recent years, Chinese migrants are increasingly spotted along these routes. Why is this happening? An independent scholar is quoted as arguing that the CCP has become more authoritarian and has tightened social control, pushing more citizens toward flight. Economic stagnation amplifies that push. Small business owners can no longer survive, graduates cannot find jobs, and people conclude that life in China is becoming structurally unlivable. Some earn too little, others are buried under debt. Many are not chasing luxury. They are chasing stability, basic security, predictable income, a future that feels real. The pandemic-era lockdown. Years are described as a turning point. After the 3-year closed period, A wave moved through Latin America toward the US. Now, as that door closes, the wave bends toward Europe. But the text does not romanticize this shift. It stresses danger. It references an incident in October on the Danube River between Serbia and Croatia. A boat carrying at least 10 Chinese migrants capsized, and one person died. German media are described as interviewing more than 20 Chinese migrants along these routes, people who cited political pressure, business collapse, and long-term unemployment. They also expressed concerns about food safety, healthcare, and education in China, basic systems that should anchor a society, but in their view no longer inspire trust. An overseas human rights lawyer is quoted arguing that a country that calls itself an economic and technological superpower, yet continues producing large numbers of people willing to risk their lives to leave, should force deep reflection internationally. Decades of economic growth did not bring political reform. Instead, the account argues, the system became more threatening to its own people. The conclusion pushed here is explicit. Western societies should support Chinese people in resisting authoritarian rule, not only for the sake of Chinese citizens, but because it would also serve global security. And then, the closing tone shifts from narration to direct address, like a broadcast sign-off. If you don't want to miss the fastest and most accurate updates we deliver, please subscribe and turn on notifications. What do you think about everything we covered today? Leave your detailed thoughts in the comments. I'll be back next time with deeper reporting. Thank you sincerely for being with us. Goodbye.